Hi, welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Game of Thrones episode 1 through 4 of season 4. Since I started my reviews at episode 5, I thought I'd go back and do a quick review for the first 4 episodes this season. Once season 4 is finished, I'll do a review for season 4 in its entirety, but for now, since there's a week off Game of Thrones, I thought it might take some time to cover the first 4 episodes that I missed. I'll start with the season premiere, Two Swords. So, like all first episodes of the season, this is mainly a setup episode to reacquaint the audience with what's going on in the Game of Thrones universe while setting us up for what's going to happen for the rest of the season. But I must say that I found this to be one of the more interesting and the best season premiere so far. Some of the highlights were the introduction of Oberyn Martell, which was pulled off in an expert and excellent manner. It has been said that he was a fan favorite from the books, and the show completely does him justice here, as he fast becomes a very powerful figure in the show as well. The introductory scene with him in the brothel tells the audience that everything we need to know about his character and leaves us wanting more. It was also great to see the dragons after they had gotten much bigger and getting a bit more rambunctious. We're getting set up for Daenerys' conquest of Meereen. However, I'm a bit confused on why she was marching to Meereen. I understand she wants to free all the slaves, but this was never really explained in the show. Last we saw her, she was liberating Yunkai. Now she's just abandoning them and moving to another city. I would have appreciated a couple of lines to explain why. Also, how does Jorah know that there will be a slave crucified at every mile marker? It was my understanding that the Masters of Meereen are doing this specifically to piss off Daenerys. Because they know she cares about slaves. So it's like a taunt that's tailored just for her, which seems to imply that this isn't a common practice, but something that you're just doing specifically to piss her off. So then how does Jorah Mormont know that there's going to be one every mile? So the scene with Marjorie Tyrell was very interesting because this is the first time we get to see her say how she really feels about Joffrey when she says,
Perhaps I should just let Joffrey choose it for me. End up with a string of dead sparrow heads around my neck.
everything we've seen her say in King's Landing so far has been pure bull, meant to manipulate and placate other people. So it's interesting to get a taste of what she really thinks, and more interesting still that Orlena warned her not even to do that with her. In terms of wrap-up, we get a scene with Jon Snow being exonerated by Maester Aemon for the events in Season 2 and 3, and at the same time reintroducing Sir Alison Thorne, who we haven't seen since Season 1, and with him reintroducing the rivalry he has with Jon Snow, which will now escalate since he's now acting Lord Commander. More setup is we're reintroduced to Sir Dantos, who is now Jester Dantos, who appeared only in one scene in the first episode of Season 2, but will play a role in the next couple episodes. And finally, I get to what I think is the best scene, and definitely of the season, and definitely one of the best of the entire series, and that is Arya and the Hound and their fight at the end. Later in the season, the Hound and Arya's relationship gets a bit tiresome and a bit overdone, but here, every line, every moment is pure gold. It accumulates in a very tense scene where the Hound attacks the Lannister men and gets a little help from Arya. Someone pointed out to me that, and I completely agree with this observation, is that the Hound's conversation with Pulver right before they fought was very Tarantino-esque. Something sort of right out of Inglourious Basterds or Django Unchained. Works in the same way to really amp up the tension between them.
You don't seem to understand the situation.
I understand that if any more words come pouring out your cunt mouth, I'm gonna have to eat every fucking chicken in this room.
And the payoff where Arya takes pleasure out of killing Lannister men, and most pleasure out of killing Pulver, who killed one of her friends and stole her sword. It's really a character development moment to see see her taunt him right before she kills him with a huge smile on her face. This scene was just awesome, making this by far the best season premiere of the series. So I'll move on to episode 2, The Lion and the Rose. Another quality episode and good follow-up to the premiere. This is still essentially a setup episode since the remainder of the season was about the aftermath of Joffrey's death. So it makes sense that they had to get it out of the way immediately. So first, I'll get into Ramsay Snow material in this episode, which I loved. You weren't sure what a sick, twisted bastard Ramsay Snow was. This episode made it clear by having him hunt down one of his maidens, seemingly just for the hell of it. And then we get exactly how brainwashed Theon is in that shaving scene, where he could have easily slit Ramsay's throat, but instead gave the Boltons the information that they wanted. It's an absolutely great scene. Speaking of great scenes, we get one of the most heartbreaking scenes of the whole series when Tyrion pushes Shay away by calling her a whore and sending her to Pentos. As was set up in the previous scene, Tyrion still loves her, but is aware of the imminent danger she's in, and having just been found out by Cersei and her father, but he knows that she's not taking him seriously, and she's not, won't believe him when she tells her that she's in true danger. So the only way to keep her safe is to make her think he doesn't care about her anymore. And it's a very tragic scene, and it gets only more tragic later the season because she actually believes that he doesn't love her anymore. So, of course, the major thing that happened in this episode was Joffrey's wedding, which, of course, ended in his death. I have to say, this moment was somewhat ruined for me since someone told me about it a year ago, and they also gave away that Lady Olenna was responsible, but it was still satisfying to see this little punk die. They especially made his death much more sweet by having him act like a spoiled little brat to Tyrion throughout the whole episode. I mean, Joffrey was reaching a whole new level, being a despicable little twerp, and then he died. I will say I was slightly disappointed in his death because I didn't think it was painful or long enough. I had read that in the books Joffrey rips out his throat while he's dying in an effort to get to the poison. I was really hoping to see that, and I was a bit disappointed when it didn't happen because I think overall he got off a bit too easily. So then I'll get to the next episode, which is episode 3, Breaker of Chains. This episode didn't impress me nearly as much as the previous two, but I suppose they couldn't keep up that momentum forever. The highlights of this episode was first the Daenerys scene. I was expecting a bit more out of it in this episode. I thought she would actually attack the city instead of just hurling broken chains at the city, but ultimately it was a smarter way for her to take the city, because if she attacked it, many slaves might die and it would make it harder for her to win their devotion. So to see Dario Naharis have his little Indiana Jones moment where he takes down that cocky champion of Marine was pretty cool. But by far the highlight of this episode to me was the speech Daenerys gave to Marine and how she was completely ignored the masters and spoke directly to the slaves she meant to free. This wasn't quite as exciting as the sacking of Astapor, to be sure, but it was still a great scene. Another highlight was the very start of the episode, seeing Dantos take away Sansa, and it was a very exciting moment, and to see her taking the Littlefinger, where we get an inkling of where Littlefinger might be involved in Joffrey's death. And poor Dantos actually expected gold from Littlefinger and not arrows in the chest. Silly Dantos. Another great moment was Tywin schooling Tommen on how to be king. I've had one complaint this season, particularly with the last several episodes, that would be not enough Tommen. Tommen is so much cooler to watch than Joffrey, and to see Tywin to expertly manipulate him into basically just doing whatever he says was quite awesome. As far as Arya and the Hound stuff, I suppose people were starting to like the Hound after episode 1, so we need a bit of a reminder of how much of a jerk he actually is. A lot of people were complaining about the Sam and Gilly scene as being really boring, but I found them mildly interesting. Sam seems like such an idiot for dropping Gilly off at Whoretown. Yeah, she looks so much safer there. Personally, I found the scene with Jaime and Cersei to be more boring. I was never that interested in their relationship, and it seemed like they were trying very hard to be provocative. Too hard, I would say. The Stannis and Davos stuff was pretty interesting, setting up his journey to Braavos. But my favorite part is when Stannis was complaining about the people Davos got to fight for Stannis and said,
"They don't have enough men between them to raid a pantry."
I love that quote. I would always use that one now when referring to Stannis' men, the dudes who couldn't even raid a pantry. As much as I like Oberyn Martell, I felt that the scene in the whorehouse was far too similar to the scene in episode 1. It all seemed very repetitive, although his conversation with Tywin was quite interesting. So next I'll move on to episode 4, Oathkeeper, a stronger episode than the previous weeks. This time we get the internal struggle with Jaime about which sibling to side with when Cersei wants to kill Tyrion. It seems obvious he would rather not choose sides and doesn't want to turn against either of them, but it becomes apparent he has to, and since Tyrion is the one whose life is in jeopardy, he pretty much ends up siding with him. And he disregards Cersei's wish to kill Sansa and instead stays true to the oath he swore to Catelyn Stark to keep Sansa safe. And of course Brienne had a huge part to play in this, so it's fitting that he sent her out to keep Sansa safe. If you watched my season 3 review, you saw that I didn't quite swallow Jaime's redemption as easily as many others in season 3. However, this is the episode where I finally accepted it, and I felt that Jaime truly redeemed himself and started acting honorably. The scene where Brienne named the sword Oathkeeper to counter the nickname Jaime earned, Oathbreaker, was quite touching. Other than that, one of the best scenes in this episode was when Marjorie went to see Tommen in his bedchamber. As I mentioned before, I love Tommen's scenes, and this one was absolutely awesome, as we saw Marjorie using her charms to manipulate him, probably far easier than it was to manipulate Joffrey. But I liked how it was almost going to be a battle of affection between Marjorie and Cersei to see who would win Tommen's affection. But this was kind of deflated in the next episode when Cersei gave up really easily. And then Daenerys' storyline was awesome as ever. My biggest complaint about it was all of it happened too fast. I wanted to see much more of it. It seems to me rebellions would be much harder to accomplish than this. But still, it was really cool to see Grey Worm stick up for Daenerys and get people all riled up, and you learn a lot more about Grey Worm's character. Also, when Daenerys crucified all those dudes, I knew that was a bad decision and that would come back to haunt her. But the shot of her, with her standing on top of the city with the huge Targaryen banner in the background, that was just awesome. So, like season 3, the Wall is actually being a lot more interesting this year. It was kind of clever of Alicent Thorne making Jon Snow's mission to Craster's Keep a voluntary one, because it not only gets rid of Jon Snow, but also anyone willing to follow him. Of course, this does backfire on him a little bit when most of them turn back alive. But then, as soon as I saw Locke in the background there, I was like, holy shit, it's Locke. It gave that whole mission an extra element of excitement because you knew Locke had his own intentions of trying to capture Bran. And then to see the mutineers at Craster's Keep was great in a disturbing kind of way. The scene with Carl Tanner drinking wine out of Lord Commander Mormont's skull was awesome. I don't care how unrealistic it is. But man, he made a really good villain, and they finally did something interesting with Bran by getting him involved in this storyline. As the final scene with the White Walker, I liked it alright. I thought it was pretty interesting that they're starting to be portrayed like people, not just zombies, and we get to see more dynamics with them. But I wasn't nearly excited about the scene as a lot of people online seem to be. It was alright, but not one of the best scenes by any stretch of the imagination. So that's my review for the first 4 episodes of this season. I'll be back next week with my review of episode 8, The Viper in the Mountain. Thanks for watching.